大家好啊！星期三嘅晚上香港時間、台北時間收睇緊嘅係 Action World 世界頻道同埋 Facebook 直播。今日咧請嚟嘅互動嘉賓咧有位 activist， 咁佢就係 Brian Boy Hioe 邱其恩。Hello Brian.
Hi. Hello 大家。
Brian, my Mandarin is very bad, even though we have a Mandarin program 2 times a month with 2 very qualified teachers trying to teach our audience, who are mainly Cantonese speakers, to enunciate properly in Mandarin, but it kind of failed.
Yeah, it's tough. I think languages are tough.
Yeah, language is tough. Even Cantonese is tougher.
Yeah. I mean, there's more tone than Cantonese as well, so that makes it more difficult.
I just landed a few hours ago in Taipei, and thank you for appearing on the show, because you will be participating in the World Hong Kong Forum 世界香港論壇星期六台北站 as a guest speaker as well. Thank you for doing that.
Of course. Definitely happy to.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background, but let me say something in Cantonese first. 咁Brian 咧就係2014年咧就係參與太陽花學運Sunflower Movement。佢 spend 差唔多20年時間咧喺北美洲啦，咁然後咧翻咗嚟，亦都有參與香港嘅社會運動啦，做一啲支援嘅工作。Probably you understand part of what I say. Maybe.
A little bit, yeah. It sounds familiar.
Yeah. To get the accuracy, maybe it's better for you to say it in English, in case I say something wrong.
Yeah, so I'm Brian Hioe, and I'm best known as one of the founders of New Bloom magazine. And we were founded in 2014 after the Sunflower Movement.
Nuclear magazine?
New Bloom, NEWBLOOM.
New Bloom.
Similar to sunflower, like this flower imagery.
Okay.
So we were students then, and so we participated in the movement. And I grew up in the US. I spent 20 years in New York. And so my background is kind of back and forth between there and Taiwan, early childhood here, and then growing up in New York. And in 2014, I just gotten back to Taiwan. And so I was pulled into the movement along with many other young people. And so that's how I ended up involved in activism and journalism and so forth.
So you went to the US when you were a kid almost?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So it's Mandarin is my first language, but then at a certain point, my English became better. Growing up in New York it's true there are a lot of Chinese speakers there, Taiwanese people as well, Hong Kongers as well.
And you studied art, was it?
No, I studied literature, English literature, and also history and East Asian studies. I have a degree in literature, an MA degree, so it's like Chinese language literature. So
Okay. Now doing activism work in Taiwan, it's not very common, I guess, unless you work for NGOs, right? But you created your own NGO back in 2014.
Yeah, that's right.
It's been 10 years.
Yeah, it's been 10 years. So it's not that common now, but particularly in 2014, there's so many young people that are part of the movement, and there was a wave of organizations that emerged. I think there's still more of a sense of civic activism at that point in time. And a lot of energy in the past 10 years has now gone elsewhere. But after the end of the movement, I felt there's a need to kind of continue that energy and channel into something that could allow for continued activism, a kind of structure. And so that ended up becoming this magazine. For other people, it might have meant joining a political party or forming a political party and things of like nature.
Right. Is there a Chinese name for your magazine?
Yeah, 破土, 破害的破, 土地的土. So like, breaking and then like ground. Yeah. Po tu, yeah.
Tu di the tu.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. I better write that down.
Yeah.
So on the thumbnail, at least, it's all correct.
Yeah, we also run a space called Po Xiao Cafe, which is a space we do events at. So sunflower movement, the flower imagery, but also like the sun imagery. And we kind of use that for the magazine and the space that we run.
I see. I also realized, besides the World Hong Kong Forum, where we will show the movie, a debut actually in Asia for the first time, Hong Kong, The Final Days of Freedom, my new book, which is also on activism, more on the what happened in 2019, and also the arrest of Mr. Jimmy Lai,
Yes.
Benny Tai, and Joshua, and all that. we will also be having a discussion on the enactment of the national security law and also Article 23 as well,
Yeah, that's
which
right.
you are one of the panel speakers. Now, most people don't believe in one country, two systems anymore in Hong Kong. Of course, we have all the so-called very famous political prisoners being locked up, and they are waiting for the final verdict. You, as a Taiwanese, how do you see the one country, two systems model?
It's interesting because it's a strange thing that links Hong Kong and Taiwan, actually, that China has tried to appeal to both using one country, two systems. It originally formulated for Taiwan, then used in Hong Kong, and its attempt to claim that we're part of the same nation, whatever that means, even if that may mean giving up on democratic freedoms. And so what's interesting is that this has been a long time, the formula that China tried to appeal to both Taiwan and Hong Kong using. But now people don't believe in it, and particularly I think people in Taiwan are conscious of what happened in Hong Kong. And seeing what occurred in 2019, but also 2014, then that really has pushed people away. And so for me, participating in the Sunflower Movement, it was always something that we were conscious of, this kind of parallel between Taiwan and Hong Kong, the way that both share this shared threat from China, and it's I think people now are not wanting to have a closer political relation with China. People are too aware of what occurs there with the A4 protests, with COVID-0, etc. And so there's that. But then this claim to have a one nation, that's also, I think, less relevant for young people that don't view themselves as part of China, that have a Taiwanese sense of identity, for example. People of my generation are younger.
Right. And do people in Taiwan, do they think CCP is a threat because they have all these different propaganda, and also the Taiwan Strait, like it's visited by jet fighters almost every day, and we're so close to the presidential inauguration, so there's more interference.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do the Taiwanese people feel in general? They think it's just bluffing, or would they go for real at one point in time, with Xi Jinping being the emperor for life?
It's a good question, actually. And for example, even just today, there's something like 45 or 46 fighter jets that intruded into Taiwan's the airspace that's near Taiwan. The Air Defense Identification Zone is the term. And the threats have increased in past years, definitely, particularly as, for example, ties with the US have increased in strength. This attempt to show force to not only Taiwan but the US, and then to try to push Taiwan away from maintaining its current independence through this kind of threats that are military, but also economic pressure, taking actions against Taiwanese companies, for example, or banning Taiwanese products, or in some cases arresting Taiwanese in China. And I think that for Taiwanese, the threat has always been there for decades, and so there's always a sense that it could happen one day. But then because of that, even with the increase in threats as of late, people are not panicking. It's always been there. The question is then that do people take it seriously or not? Because I also don't know. I think some people do, some don't. You have seen some efforts from young people in particular, civil defense, for example, training to be prepared for what happens in the event of an invasion, such as in Ukraine, and discussion of then how to be prepared for that, or people trying to educate themselves on military matters. But then some people just think it would never happen. I mean, there are also some reasons to argue that. For example, the death toll that China itself would face, or the economic impact from an invasion. So I think it's a good question. I mean, we don't know, actually.
Now, most people see Taiwan as an independent nation, but like CCP always says, if Taiwan is claiming for independence publicly, they will have a first strike, something like that, right? But to us, I mean, for almost a few decades, people look at Taiwan as an independent nation. So does that phrase, whether Taiwan would declare itself as an independent nation, I mean, is there any substance to this sentence?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that probably not at this juncture. The Lai administration that's incoming and the outgoing Tsai administration are both aware that China has said this. And so the stance they maintain is that Taiwan's already independent. So there's no need to declare independence. There's no need to overly provoke China in that sense. And China itself then will try to frame this still as being pro-independence in some way. And so China is always changing the red line. And in that sense, trying to justify actions to further constrain Taiwan.
Yeah.
But then I think that's the thing, it's that Taiwan is de facto independent, and the PRC has never ruled Taiwan in the history of the PRC, and so there is that.
Now, as a Hong Konger myself, who is now living overseas, I always think like going to China. I don't feel too safe.
Yeah.
In fact, a little bit uncomfortable. Last time I was there was in 2017, so it has been quite a while. It was in Shenzhen. I was contesting for a district council seat in Hong Kong, and just to show that I can enter China freely, right? But now with the enactment of the National Security Law and Article 23, people who are outspoken overseas or locally in Hong Kong, they are very cautious. But to you, I don't know whether you visit China at all, and if you do you see the big contrast of living in Taiwan and also traveling to China? You could get abducted, and then you could break into all kinds of laws, so to speak. Do you see the contrast?
Yeah, it's I've actually only ever been to China once, which is for like 3 days.
Once?
Yes, that was before I was known for anything. And it's true that actually even then though, it's I could see some of the differences between Taiwan and China, let's say, or even Hong Kong and China. I've been to Hong Kong, on the other hand, many times. That was when the military exercises for some anniversary in 2015, I can't remember what it was, but it's like a military parade. They clear up the skies of pollution because they want just to have a blue sky for the photos. And that already shows something, that just for a military parade, you suddenly order everything to change, and that normally the government is not regulating the health of regular people that are affected by air pollution and so forth. And so things have only worsened since then with COVID-0 and the impact on everyday freedoms, that the government is so much more sensitive to crackdowns and conducting crackdowns. For example, when the Sun Government happened in 2014, that was only 2 years into Xi Jinping's political rule, and things have gotten only worse since then. And so I don't travel to China. I don't take planes that transfer through China. At this point, I don't think I can travel to Hong Kong either. I was there in 2019, but then I think particularly for Taiwanese people, it is quite dangerous. For example, people are involved in NGO work or human rights activism, like Li Mingzhe, for example, the human rights NGO worker that went to China through Macau, if I'm not mistaken, and then was detained and arrested for 5 years without real, on the claim that he was seeking to politically undermine the state. And that would probably also occur to me, or may occur, because of my political activism in that sense. And so I don't try that. People that are targeted in China actually even include Taiwanese that are pro-unification. There are a number of Taiwanese that are in Chinese jails currently, who are actually have known pro-unification backgrounds or are connected with the KMT, the pro-China party in Taiwanese politics, and that has not prevented them from being detained. And so I think for someone with rather outspoken views on China, it's a little too risky.
Well, I guess the last comment I want to make is under the DPP third term, so to speak. Taiwan would be quite safe, but I want to get your comment on Xi Jinping as emperor for life. If he changes for the better, do you think there's a chance for reunification?
Yeah, I think probably not. I just think that Taiwanese identity is going a different direction than China. So even if China suddenly democratized magically tomorrow, it would not happen. I think the gap culturally is too large, and how would you integrate Taiwan politically and economically into that as well? Because that would mean giving up elections. Even if China were to democratize, that would mean that you become just a state or province of China, and so that probably would not occur. So I do think Taiwan and China are headed on very different courses. But it's a question with Xi as well. I mean, lifetime rule, how long will that be? And what might he do as he gets older and wants to secure the political legacy? I think we don't know. So that's maybe the dangerous aspect of it.
No, I wish Xi Jinping could change, become more humble, try to understand what democracy is, and learn, the Western core values more instead of having his own Xi Jinping doctrine, which is scary to a lot of Hong Kongers. We feel suppressed under the totalitarian regime, and of course, people who are in power in Hong Kong, they have to say, all these nationalist or love the motherland kind of saying, which is a false pretense.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I hope one day China could be free and learn from Taiwan, learn from the good old Hong Kong, learn from the Lime Rock spirit.
Yeah,
Why not?
I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
These are the good stuff. that we
Absolutely.
have. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the interview.
And remember the 世界香港論壇. It's this Saturday from 1:30 to 5:30. We will have a movie, 香港的最後自由，同埋一本新書啦，就係對沖人生路，自由價更高，同埋 Brian 同我會有份參與嘅係 discussion on 23條同埋港區國安法，希望大家會鍾意。如果你想台北嘅朋友咧嚟咧，就可以去左轉右書。左轉右書是 next to the legislative building, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's very close to there.
Yeah. And then you could email me at World HK Forum. World 即係世界啦，HK Forum at gmail.com. Bye bye.
Take care.